So I'm here with Christy Benoit, who is a leader, a visionary, a consultant, does all sorts of stuff, and I can't wait for this conversation. We're going to be talking about career change, this incredible building, the business that you run, the strengths that have helped you get there, and the hardest parts you've had to learn along the way. Tune in. This 20 minutes will be something you want to watch. So I've been so excited for this conversation, because I know you a little bit, so I know a little bit of your story, and I know that includes massive career change, it includes an incredible story of leadership, it includes this space, and it includes probably the most proactive and forward-thinking perspective on what work can be. And I know that you've been working on all that stuff for the last decade, so I'm super excited to be in this conversation with Christy. Maybe for some context for our watchers, how do you describe your work?
Well, my work involves wearing many hats, and I guess I have irons in many fires, but really I'm committed to trying to prove that there's a better way to do business. So I am demonstrating with my teams that it's possible to build profitable businesses while still preserving human core values, personal happiness, and the sustainable environment.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a big challenge. And so the vessels through which I work with look quite different. I own a company called Oil Country Engineering, as you know, which I've owned and led for, 10 years. It's an employee-owned group. And then also was a visionary and owner of the Mosaic Center. And then now have shifted my focus more towards sort of sharing some of the best practices and lessons learned in my own businesses with other business leaders and leadership teams in sort of the consulting work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So many hats.
Yeah, and like the humbleness you talk about, those many hats. Christy's been doing some incredible work, and this space is a story unto itself. Like, what space are we sitting in? Can you explain the Mosaic Center for folks who don't know what it is?
Sure. So the Mosaic Center for Conscious Community and Commerce is the northernmost net zero energy building in the world. So what that means is that it's producing as much energy as it consumes over the course of the year. It was built to the LEED Platinum standard, so it's the greenest level of certification that you can get for a commercial building. And really we wanted to build a space that reflected on the outside who we were as a corporate culture on the inside. So we wanted a space that really fostered innovation and collaboration, and there's a lot of open spaces where people come together, and there's sort of those, haphazard sort of interactions where people can just a lot of idea generation happening. It's an inspiring space, and so really we originally were looking for a space for our businesses to move into, but then realized if we're trying to really create the ideal workplace, that we would also want to include, a place for people to have really good meal, childcare, there's a fitness studio, and then also to bring in other businesses. So we have a co-working space in the building where small business startups can come and work together, and also sort of share best practices and lessons learned amongst themselves as they're going through the same stages of startup innovation.
Yeah. And even stuff like you could probably hear, I don't know if you could hear that through the microphone, but the daycare, the restaurant, this place is like a full community almost in one little building, and it's an extraordinary space just to step into. Like, there's a feeling when you get into it. And I think the thing that I've been struck so much by through your work over the last couple of years is that you don't lose sight of what it's for. When you say we're trying to figure out how to make work better for people, it's an easy statement to say. It's actually a really difficult thing to try to unwind all of the madness that's around work and to try to get back to what are we doing this for? Work serves life. And if it starts to feel like the other way around, it just turns into madness. And I think you guys have done such a good job to say, this building is designed for people's lives, it's designed to make them happy, and we're trying our best to figure out how our business can do that at the same time this space can do that. It's really extraordinary.
Thank you.
Yeah. But this is so all these hats you've been picking up over the last 10 years are new hats, because you went through a pretty major career transition, which I'm always fascinated by, because I speak with hundreds of people every year who say, this is what's in my heart, and I'm just stuck. Now you were a pharmacist.
Yep.
11 years ago.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
And then have now done all of this work. How did that happen? I know that's like probably a loaded question, but really, what was how were you able to lead so boldly at that time of your life?
I think, it's interesting because you ask how, and my answer is actually why.
Okay.
So I went into pharmacy because I wanted to help people, and I believed that I did want to own a business at some point, and it made sense, that I could be in a healthcare profession and own my own drugstore. That was sort of the plan.
Okay.
I got into the profession. I found the work somewhat mundane, but also felt like the industry wasn't a really good fit for my core values, and didn't want to get into a business that was that government regulated. And so ultimately I shifted focuses within my pharmacy career to, teaching at the university and doing research, working in hospital practice, community practice. I tried so many different things within the profession to find that fulfillment I was looking for. And I just kept bumping into brick walls and just felt like my soul was dying a little bit every day. And a large part of it was because having decided not to go into my own business and then therefore staying working for the large corporations that were the options for me at the time, I felt like my soul was dying a little bit every day working in those cultures. And I was a very entrepreneurial spirit, so I was constantly going to my bosses and saying, I have some ideas about how we can improve this, this issue we've been having, why don't we do this? And I was always trying to innovate and be creative, and I think my bosses found that quite irritating and annoying, and to the point where it was like, it was like, here, have a little bit of a raise here, but enough of the ideas.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly disengaging because I felt like there was so much inside of me that I wanted to share and do, and I couldn't because nobody cared to draw that out of me. And so really what happened was at the same time, my then husband was having a similar experience in his corporate culture, in his profession. And so we decided to do a business based around his area of expertise, which was engineering in the oil and gas industry. And so really what it was we were stepping out to prove that there had to be a better way to do corporate culture. That if you treated people well, that they would then treat your customers well, and then the outcome would be, a profitable business. Rather than, looking at the bottom line always as your driving decision maker, right?
Yeah.
And so really it was, I felt like I had no choice but to make the change because I was just so unhappy with what I was doing, and I didn't want to commit myself to a life of mediocrity and misery forever. It was just too much. So yeah, we took a leap of faith, and it's been a massive social experiment that's been going on for 10 years now. We're actually celebrating Oil Country's 10th birthday today.
No way!
It is, yeah.
Congratulations,
so,
that's huge.
Yeah, so.
So, one of the things I didn't tell you about these interviews is that we often do a little bit of a lesson within the lesson where the person I'm talking to can kind of provide a bit of insight, and I usually set that up with the person in advance, and with you I thought I wouldn't, and I'll tell you what, I just feel like I keep the experiment going, but I feel like, so you run a company in an environment that from outside perspective could be seen as being the same old culprit that usually is doing hard things to our environment and doing hard things to people and you guys bucked that trend. And so I think that when I hear you speak about work, it's more about, again, why you do it. It does get into kind of how you do it differently, all sorts of that stuff. For the person who can't leave work and start a business, but their soul is dying a little bit every day, what could they do to start to operate, even within their current job, with a bit more of a why focus, a bit more of a perspective on creating a happy life for themselves? What could they do?
I really think that the most important work that we can do for ourselves, if we're lucky, we have parents that were able to help us kind of on this path, but often that's not the case. But I think kind of the most important work we can do for ourselves is to try to get really, really in touch with what our gifts and our strengths are, where we're talented. I think that if you can get clarity on what really juices you, like even just looking at, even if it's a job that you're not loving, looking at the pieces of your job that light you up is a really good those are cues or clues as to where your talents or strengths might lie.
Yeah.
And then likewise, the pieces that really just drag you down and drain you are kind of a clue to areas of weakness. And so if you can start getting clarity on what your strengths are, then I think you can be more proactive in either within your current work environment, talking to your management or leadership, and then offering up those strengths and talents, finding ways to see how those might be able to actually help the company achieve what they're trying to achieve in better ways. And then if you really could almost take a proposal to your manager and say, you have to be very bold and honest. You have to say, I'm not having a great experience at work, but I think that I can see a way to become part of the solution. Here's what I propose. Most leaders really appreciate it when their people come to them with a problem, but also the solution, or at least a proposed solution as a starting point for conversation. I think that shows a lot of initiative, and it's a quality that most managers are looking for in their people. So.
I feel like I should invite you on the road to talk about careers with people, because that's almost exactly the pathway that, after looking at this for over a decade for myself, it boils down to that. If you feel like your soul is dying, great way to say it, and you can't just jump out of that system. What it boils down to is starting to narrow down on what is it that would drive me forward in a really positive way, and then just to find a way to inject that into your work, whether it's through a proposal or through a conference you can go to and learn from someone and come back and do a presentation on it. But something that starts to get this seed planted that can then grow over time, and that really is an effective strategy for people.
Yeah.
So fascinating that you kind of seen that, and I think probably because you've worked on that with your staff. One of the things that was super cool when I first met you is you're talking about Wednesdays here, and that Wednesdays was very driven towards personal development. Now I don't know exactly where that is anymore, but what was your practices on Wednesdays? What is that idea?
So on Wednesdays are continuous improvement day, where we basically stopped our day-to-day production and focused on improvement of ourselves and on the business. So we would be working on, everybody would have a problem that they were working towards solving it at any given time. So on Wednesdays we would be working on things like, could be for some people just changing, like improving the minor workflow issues. For some of us it would be, working on sort of major strategic issues on the business, standardizing processes, developing new systems, 5S'ing or tidying and cleaning our spaces to declutter. There was really no end to the types of things that we could be doing to remove waste from our day-to-day work, and therefore the other 4 days a week that we were working to have our time be so much more effective, more efficient, better throughput, more productive, etc. But definitely there is a learning session that we would host every Wednesday. So we send out an article on some topic that is either professional or personal development, or sometimes related to the technical work. And then we would read that article and then come together in a group learning session to share our key takeaways and how we see that we could actually apply that learning to our work. And then each week we would come back and reflect on our experiences of applying that, and then have the new learning each week. So it's really fun to learn together as a group, for sure. And then of course it's really ingrained, that continuous improvement core value of our organization into everybody. So,
and I think about, like, again, in a textbook that solution sounds wonderful, but the pressure you have to face to shut down the day-to-day operations for a day, 20% of your work week, kind of shut down, in order to believe that we can get better at the other 80% to make this make sense. And again, not just from a bottom line perspective, but from a human perspective. And I know that you keep an eye on both those metrics, but I just think about the foresight and pressure you'd need to keep at bay to actually do that. It's just such a cool story.
Yeah, and then 20% of a work week might be, we're an innovative design company, so it works for our industry and what we do, and maybe that's a bit more than what another another type of business in a different industry would need to do. But I do think that there's so much value in committing a certain percentage of your time and energy to taking a step back and working on yourself or on the business, so that you can do what you do even better.
Yeah. And it gets down to that core idea of leadership. I mean, if we remove all the bits and pieces that make that term so cluttered, and we just say, what is it? I mean, it's saying there's a path that's easy to walk down that looks like the same path either everyone else walks down or we've walked down for every day. And there's an opportunity to change that. And so how do we create the space, the clarity, all those things to actually alter our trajectory? And I just see over and over again, you guys have done that. And I kind of leads me to my next question. So you wear lots of hats, which a lot of people do kind of early on as they're trying things out, but you actually wear a lot of hats at a very high level of business and operations and leadership. So what is the thing that you are uniquely good at that allows you to do that? Like, what are you world class at?
I think that I have an ability to see the best in people, which sometimes burns me. I mean, not gonna lie, there's times in your life where the eternal optimist, you know, it can have a downside too, but I'd never give it up. So I see the best in people, and I'm driven to find ways to bring that out of them. And then I think another kind of piece of that is that I find ways to bring the best of people together in a collaborative way, so that they're kind of synergizing together, so that you're getting, you know, 1 + 1 is greater than 2, right? So yeah, I think really just the ability to bring groups of people together, leveraging each other's strengths and weaknesses, is something that I'm passionate about. I think I do a pretty good job of.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so hard as I'll say world class, but you can
Well.
say it how you'd like. What's been the hardest leadership lesson for you to learn?
I think for me it was the 80-20 rule, which was really boiled down to you're only going to be able to please 80% of the people 80% of the time. Like I think I set such high standards for myself, and I want to know that people are always, you know, pleased, and that decisions made are decisions that are you know, happy for everybody, etc. But the reality is as a leader, that, you know, when you have a group of people to be leading, that it's not possible to believe that you're going to have everybody pleased all the time. And so sometimes you do just need to make the hard decisions and accept that it's never 100%. That was really difficult.
Yeah. I think that I think some personalities are geared to recognize that and be comfortable with it, and some personalities are geared to recognize it but just still never be comfortable with it. And that's, you know, there's probably you know, pros and cons on both sides.
For sure, and I think that it's part of, I really believe that your greatest strengths taken too far can be your greatest weaknesses.
Yeah.
And I do believe actually that it's my strength and my desire to hear all voices, bring all voices together, to collaborate and come to the best decisions that can be like a good decision that everybody feels engaged in and you know, aligned with. That's a strength. But then when when it's not always possible, it becomes a weakness for me, because you can't always expect that everybody's going to be aligned on a decision, especially the bigger the group gets.
Sure. Okay, so I've got one last question for you. If you could, you talk about making work better, that we can do this better. If you could like wave a magic wand and have businesses, the culture of business, get something, and not just get it, but apply it, do it, what would that be? What would you hope that the business culture could understand?
I wish that we could really internalize the idea that our people are our greatest assets, that truly your business is nothing without the people that do the work every day, and that it's your competitive advantage, especially as the you know, our work environment and our work cultures shift, and our younger generations are coming in and requiring different things of their leadership. I think that if you can really embody the idea that your people are your greatest assets, and really commit to nurturing their talents and strengths and bringing the best out of them, and having them in roles where they're working towards what they love and what they're good at most of the time, that you can get unbelievable things out of your people and have them happy while they're doing it. There's just that level of engagement is unbeatable when they're working towards their passion and their strengths. And I really believe that itself can be a strategic competitive advantage for almost any business.
And I think even the idea, to take it one step further, that your greatest asset is your people, and those people have lives. And if they're going home stressed and sad, it's spilling over into their life, and it affects the business, and it's just terrible, and it's pervasive. I mean, it's in our culture of work right now, and I just applaud folks like you who are actively pumping the brake on that and creating change. So thank you for this incredible opportunity to talk, and I look forward to the next time too.
Thank you.